The following program was made possible thanks to the generous support of our Kickstarter backers.
When our first Holmes was born, then he got fat, bald, and tired. Sup, Holmes?
Beware your host, Jonathan Holmes!
Thanks so much, Sinistar, as always. Jane Friedhoff? Is that how
Friedhoff.
it's Friedhoff. So we're
That's okay.
starting off with a typical of me. Jeff Friedhoff.
Mhm.
I always read it. You know how sometimes when you read a word, a different word happens in your brain. I would love to know why that happens. But I've always seen it as Jane Friedhoff.
Oh, that's because it's usually my display name on Twitter,
Oh,
Jane Friedhoff.
so I actually
that's
read the
really my
thing.
fault. Yeah.
That makes me feel better and excited to speak with you. You most recently, and I wish we could have timed it right because the game's been out for a little bit, but it's hard to time things. Slam City Oracles, a video game I've been reading about for some time. You released that how long ago now?
September 1st, I think.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's been a little while. Almost 2 months. And how has it been? Maybe you can describe to us what your goal was with Slam City Oracles. And then people, as they hear about it, they'll be like, what the heck is this? Then they'll go play it. That's my goal.
Yeah, totally. So Slam City Oracles is a two-player co-op, kind of like Katamari Damacy meets Grand Theft Auto game, where you and a friend slam on all these objects in a city to cause as much chaos as possible. So the harder you slam, the more things go flying. It's this big world with all sorts of different assets and toys and things in it. And you have 2 minutes to do it. And it's made by me and another game designer in New York who did the art, Jenny Zhao Sa, and this super awesome female-fronted rock band from Brooklyn called Scully. So yeah, we released that on PC, Mac, and Linux on September 1st, 48 hours after my computer broke somehow. That was fun. But
And Scully, are they named after Mulder and Scully?
I believe so, yes. So that's near and dear to my heart. So
yeah, likewise. So you say it's like Katamari plus Grand Theft Auto, but my sense is that it's the feel of those things as opposed to direct gameplay.
Definitely.
The gameplay of Slam City Oracles involves just smashing a lot. Is there eating pizza, or am I just imagining that?
There's up on like the food level, because there's multiple different areas with all these different assets. There's pizza that is like hanging out that you can smash into. There's Jenny did an asset that was like a slice of pizza with these like awesome sunglasses, and I'm so close to getting it tattooed. It's a little bit like wearing the band's t-shirt at the band show to get someone's asset from your game tattooed on you, but I love it so much. It's so good.
And are there Pop-Tarts?
There are Pop-Tarts. Yes, there are
There's a lot of
Pop-Tarts.
stuff.
Yeah.
So for people who haven't played it, it's not simply 2 minutes of hitting the same ground and smashing the same stuff. There are places you can end up going if you're skilled enough at smashing the things.
Yeah, that's right. So basically, the more height you have, the harder you can slam. And when you slam on lots of things, it tends to give you more height because it's more bouncy. Everything in this world is bouncy. So when you get up in the air, you can slam down harder, which sends you higher up, which lets you slam down harder. And so you end up navigating through this like vertical layering of levels. So it starts off like this sort of ordinary cityscape, and then a little bit of like a like fair type thing with like all these different toys in it. Then there's like a food level, then there's a space level, and then I'm not going to say what the last level is.
Exciting, but it's pretty hard to get it because you only have 2 minutes. So it's one of those games that drives you to push yourself and compete against yourself to see if you can get farther than you had the last time, which I'm seeing more and more of those get popular. Downwell just came out, neat game. That's another one. It's less about like beating any particular boss and more about like, can I get farther than I did the last time? So it's a similar feeling there, though. Downwell going down, shooting. Slam City Oracles moving up, smashing, and having no fear. That's one of the things I've really Downwell. Not to press the comparison too much because they're both on my mind. I like them a lot. Downwell is like kind of scary all the time. Like you keep going down, maybe that frog will kill you. Slam City Oracles is like we're moving on up, and maybe next time there'll be pizza. and
Yeah.
you never feel as though there's any sort of a calamity, but you do have an ambition. And was that, I tend to read into things a lot, and I know a little bit about your career. You seem like a Slam City Oracle.
Well, thank you. That's very much a compliment. Yeah, so it's sort of funny. When I was making Slam City Oracles, I was sort of at a time in my life where it's sort of hard to be a woman in games. You often feel like very alone. You deal with some stuff that is annoying, sexism that I won't get into. And I sort of realized that I was channeling a lot of those emotions into this game that I was making, where it was like this this totally like over the top, joyous, if you feel vulnerable, here's a world where you're invincible, like nothing can touch you. This is all about like creating joy for yourself and the people around you. So it's sort of funny. I feel like when we talk about personal games as game designers, we tend to think about like very autobiographical, usually about trauma, usually done in a certain style. And that's fine. Like, I think that that's great. And I think it's great that we're making more games like that. But I think we tend to ignore, like, we don't expand that definition to fit other kinds of games that are personal, but maybe have a different feel to them that aren't quite so autobiographical. And I feel like sometimes it's not taken seriously as a personal game if it's not it's not taken seriously as a personal game if it's not like very serious. Whereas for me, like one of the things I wanted to do was create something very joyous for people like me who had similar feelings. So,
and was it intentional? And it's a silly question because it must have been. Everything's kind of intentional except for accidents. But something like character design is usually not accidental. The characters, baby, proportioned, ladies, tough, frowny, but cute, colorful, substantial. Like you feel like if they smashed into you,
totally,
you would know it.
Yeah.
There's nothing slight about them, and yet there's nothing about them that to me comes across as hostile. It's like finding aggression without hostility is what comes across there. Was that all part of the plan?
Yeah, so that was deliberate. When I was working with Jenny, we definitely it was important to me that they seem solid, that they not be like, tiny twigs that would also have this like incredible slamming power. Like, again, it was sort of funny. Like, I wanted to create a space where, being clumsy was rewarded, taking up space was rewarded, right? Lots of things that you're not really supposed to do when you're a girl. So it was really important to me that the character's shape sort of reflected that they looked like they would take up space, and that was a good thing, right? Like, if they were smaller, you wouldn't be able to hit as much stuff. Like, your goal is to hit like multiple things at a time. So if you're like 20 pixels skinnier, you won't do as good a job at that. So
sure. And when did work on the game start?
Let's see. So I think I sort of drove Charles crazy, Charles Pratt, who was curating No Quarter at the time, because we got about a year of notice. I want to say maybe a little less, maybe like 8 months. And I was working on this one game, and I like didn't really like it, was waiting for it to come together. And then there was a period of time where I played in quick succession Left Trousers and Rockets, Rockets, Rockets. And in both of them, there's this incredible, they're both like about flying pretty much. And in Left Trousers, it's like the side scrolling, sort of like shooting at planes and stuff. But the thing I always loved to do was to accelerate really hard and go really high and then fall down out of the sky. It just felt really good. And then Rockets, Rockets, Rockets is like a player versus player type thing where it's sort of similar. You're two rockets shooting rockets at each other. And I remember I like laid face down in bed and I was like, these are the perfect games. Like, I want to do something like this. There's something here. There's something about this up and down and up and down. And so about 6 weeks out from No Quarter, I was like, Charles, I'm changing my idea. It's totally going to work. Like, don't worry about it. And I wasn't sure that it would, but it was a pretty jam-packed 6 weeks. So not too far out.
Whoa. So it was a 6-week development time on that? No.
So yeah, I mean, the version that came out for No Quarter was about 6 weeks. Then I took some time off of it for a while and then worked on it for maybe a month to like make it ready to actually be released. But the bulk of it was done then, and like, God bless Jenny, like she made so many amazing, because I, probably started prototyping about 6 weeks out, and then 3 weeks out, I was like, hi, I want to hire you. Like, can you make a ton of art in 3 weeks? She was like, I think I could do that. So.
Awesome. I can't believe that worked. Like, I'm still a little bit in shock. I was expecting.
Me neither.
So one of the things I look for in games is, well, sadly, sometimes I'm looking at like, this game took a year to make, and because of that, in the time since it came out, some of its thunder got stolen. I don't think that happened with your game. In fact, quite the opposite. It feels like Steven Universe world a little bit. Do you like Steven Universe at all?
I haven't seen it yet. I know everyone loves it.
It's pretty neat. Yeah, there's a character named Amethyst in it, and she turns into a ball sometimes and just smashes into whatever she wants. She's kind of like a Blanca from Street Fighter, but with a lot of kinetic, thick energy, but with a candy smartness to it. Candy smartness. That could be a way to describe your game.
I like that.
Candy. It's sweet.
Yeah.
But it's smart, but not in a way that makes you feel like you have to think. You can be smart and feel at the same time.
I like that.
I think I'm making sense, but I never know until later. And I never watch the show later because it makes me feel terrible. God, watching myself is the absolute worst. So it's out on PC, Linux, and
Mac.
Do you want to put it on other things? What after you've made it and it's out, how much do you want to go back to it?
Yeah, this is like the eternal question. I would love to put it on consoles. People have approached me and been like, hey, you should like make a mobile version that's just one player because it's like a really simple control scheme. And I'm always torn between like building it out and also like trying to just putting it aside and trying out something new. Every game that I make, like that I have been making for like the last couple of years, has sort of orbited around a lot of the same ideas, even though they like look really weird and different. And so part of me is like, yeah, I'll make Slam City Oracles mobile, new Angry Birds. I was gonna call it Angry Girls, which is like, that's actually really good.
That would be so good,
right?
I wonder about Angry Birds is always sort of freaked me out because I feel like people want to be angry, but they also want to be cute at the same time. So stuff like Angry Birds or Grumpy Turtles or whatever some of the spinoffs are. But why can't we just be angry people? Like, why can't there just be a game called Angry People where you're angry? Well, I guess that's Grand Theft Auto, but that does it under the auspice of like, we're just doing this for money. We're not bad people. We're not sadistic. But they're totally sadistic, and it's fun to be sadistic in a virtual world sometimes. That's okay.
Well, and I feel like that's a funny thing too, is that when you think about the kinds of things that people want to get out of their systems that they do during games, like we have a very limited view of that. And I say that just like as an aside, as someone who has played like hundreds and hundreds of hours in Grand Theft Auto, I have no hate for that. But I feel like our perspective of what people want to do or be allowed to do in games is so limited. It's like, oh, people want to like shoot other people, they want to like have sex with other people, they want to like cause explosions, whatever. And it's like, that seems like a very small part of the pie to me, right? Something that I've always been interested in is this sort of like delightful destruction, same that you would see in like Katamari Damacy, right? Like one of the goals that I have for a lot of the games that I make is that I sort of want all of them to feel like you're a kid and there's a big pile of leaves over there and you just like need to jump into it, right? And like something happens when you do, and that feels really good. And so I feel like there's lots of permissions that we're looking for. I mean, I have a lot of like physical games that I've made that are all about like being silly or loud or whatever in public. It's really just about like giving you an excuse to do something that you can't do in everyday life. That's not, the usual like shooting, having sex, killing people, whatever.
I think a lot of people would miss that potentially. A lot of people I talk to about this, and they're usually not game designers, just game enthusiasts. There's a big backlash against people whom are saying, oh, just shooting and having sex again, like, and it's often teenagers who like don't get what it's like to be 25 yet and have already played like 10 years worth of those games. Like Grand Theft Auto, do you remember how old you were the first time you played Grand Theft Auto?
That's a good question. I think the very first Grand Theft Auto I played, was the one that was like weird and top down. Am I like having a fever dream?
Oh no, you're right.
Oh, okay, good. And then the one, because I was like, that doesn't make any sense. But the one that I played like obsessively was Grand Theft Auto 3, where I would just drive around all the time, like all the time.
Yeah, do you have a guess as to how old you were when you were playing that
Oh,
one?
jeez. I feel like if I get this wrong, I'm gonna be like a fake gamer girl. But I want to say I was like in my teens, like 13, 14, 15, maybe.
Sure.
I'm not sure. Yeah.
When you played that, I'm guessing it was like, I get to do this. Like I get.
Yeah, totally.
As a, how old was I when I first noticed that like people could be sexy? Like,
Yeah.
Sexy people? Like if
What?
I look at that person, I'll feel this way.
Yeah.
Like this is, I just want to do this all day. Sexy
Totally.
people all day. Now I'm 38, and like if I see another sexy person again, I'm gonna be bored out of my skull. I'm bored of sexiness. Isn't that
Yeah.
sad? I mean, not in real life. Amongst
Sure.
people whom I know, it's great to be around people you're attracted to and a mutual blah blah blah. But just the theory of sexy people, just looking at a swimsuit model, for instance.
Totally.
People don't get, these poor teens don't
Yeah.
get that. Eventually, we need something that mixes it up a little bit. That,
Totally.
gives us something we haven't already seen a billion times, like your games, for instance. I wonder would you want to do if you had $1 billion? And I normally save this question for later, but I'm excited about it right now. Like, would you do a Slam City Oracles on the scale of Grand Theft Auto?
Yes.
You know?
Oh my God. Yeah. Definitely. No question. Yeah.
So having that sense of, because there's already freedom in the game.
Yeah.
There's already the capacity to see things you've never seen before, but to have it on the scale of Grand Theft Auto 4 or whatever, or there was 5 already, wasn't there?
Yeah. Yeah.
Good grief.
I know. I've like lost track.
Yeah, me too. I want to get into how you got started in this whole video game thing. So you've been playing them for a while, at least. Grand Theft Auto 3 wasn't your first game you played.
Oh, no.
No. Well, how old were you, would you guess, when you first started playing video games?
That's a really good question. So I remember it like depends on like how old school you want to get. Although like I'm not that old, so my most old school is not that old school. But like I remember like playing. Do you remember the Lynx, the handheld, the like huge, like I have like hoagie hands right now, like the enormous.
Don't even get me started. Well, you can if you want. The Lynx. I was like a diehard Lynx fanboy at age 13. Like the Game Boy had come out too, and I was like, Black and White, Tetris. I want California games. I want Bob's Adventure and Slime World and whatnot. I was a Lynx snob.
Awesome.
I looked down on Game Boy owners, and then it died like a year after.
I know. Yeah, we had one of those, and we would play it. So it was like that, and like the not the Genesis, the Game Gear. The moment that I remember, like my mind being totally blown, because I thought video games were cool, and that's fine, whatever. But I remember going over to a friend's house who had an N64, and they were playing Legends of Zelda, the Ocarina of Time, and they went out into Hyrule Field, and like the camera opened up, and I just like remember being totally floored. I was like, we can do this? Like we can build these worlds out of nothing? Like, is this a joke? Because I had known, you could transport people like through writing and books and movies and stuff, but I was always like a nerdy kid. So I was like, well, I don't really want to do film because like that's like so much stuff you have to organize with people. I don't want to do writing, that's too solo. And then I was like, whoa, people do this? Like, this is crazy. So I remember like playing that obsessively. I started modding games. I would play a lot of like really shitty games that would have like their assets folder just out somewhere. So I was like, there's a bitmap. I can draw on that bitmap. I can do that. And started like writing text adventures. In high school, I interned for this game design company in New York called Game Lab, which is where like Nick Fortuno and Frank Lance and Naomi Clark and a bunch of other people were at the time. I didn't realize that I would like be seeing them again in 10 years. Like, hi guys, what's up? And I just kept making games. And it was a sort of thing where in high school and in college, I always loved games. I knew that I loved games. I knew that I loved coding. I knew that I loved designing. But my only perception of what was out there was like AAA. And although I liked playing AAA games, I kind of knew that I didn't want to be like, forever the person who does like the shader programming for like shiny cars, right? Like I didn't want to have to specialize as much as they make you in AAA, or at least the way that I understood it. And I also, this I think was around the time of like, I want to say like the EA wife or whatever, where she was like, oh my God, all this terrible crunch and like the work-life balance is garbage and whatever. So I was like, okay, I don't know about that. But I kept making weird art and weird games and weird installation stuff. And then my boyfriend ended up going to Parsons, and he found out sort of about this like New York City indie games community. And he was like, this is really cool. He's a game designer also. This is really cool. Like, Jane, you got to check this out. You're going to love this. And I was like, whoa, there's all these people making these weird games, like in small teams that are about all these weird topics. Like, I was like, this is great. This is where I want to be. And so it was there that I got like really serious about making games. And then, yeah, it's just sort of been ever since then.
And how long has that been since you found out about this? And I don't know why it doesn't get as much press as it could.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people doing their own thing, but interlocking with each other and influencing each other in New York City. Zach Gage is one of the guys I know a little bit. He recently put out a Solitaire game.
That's right, yeah.
Solitaire better. And Damien Somner. Do you know Damien Sommer? I said his name wrong.
This is someone I know like on Twitter. Like I know the Twitter avatar.
He just put out a new drunken chess called Chesh.
Yeah.
I'm
nice.
so happy that happened. Yeah, it's just like, what if you were playing a chess game for the Commodore 64 or whatever, and it just didn't work right.
That's cool.
Yeah,
I'm gonna check that out.
Yeah.
So
how long? It's gonna be tough to, I would bet, to put a timeline out for how long you've been in this particular phase of your career. But I'm curious about your first game ever. Maybe we can dial it back all the way to that.
Oh my God, what was my first game ever?
Because you were making text adventures, and
yeah,
I was following you had played the Atari Lynx, and you thought it was okay. But you weren't like super impressed. But Ocarina of Time blew your mind.
Oh my God!
And after that, you decided you want to try to be able to make games yourself.
Exactly.
Okay.
Gosh, my first text adventure. I think I made a text adventure as a present for a relative. So it was about them like basically dieharding in some diehard-esque situation. It was like really ridiculous, but it was just like any way that I could like create like an interactive world, I was like totally into. That was about where my programming skills were at that time. Not so much anything
what were you working
harder.
on? What kind of computer did you have?
Oh man, it was probably a PC. I want to say that it was this like ridiculous text adventure language called like Alan. I knew all these weird niche like I remember at the time I was like an Adam Cadre, Emily Short fangirl. I was like, these people are amazing. Like if I ever run into them, I'll like have to run away. Like I thought that they were like super celebrity famous. And
who are they?
So
I don't. Alan...
they're luminaries in text adventures. No, they're great. Adam Cadre did a text adventure called Photopia that's very well known. And Emily Short does a lot of like really interesting narrative stuff. She did a text adventure or a piece of interactive fiction called Galatea, which is really interesting. Yeah. They were huge inspirations to me for a really long time. I actually got to run into them at Indiecade, or I got to run into Emily Short at Indiecade, and I was like sort of embarrassingly fangirly, which happens a lot.
So how old were you then, would you guess?
Let's say I want to say like 13 again, but that's just whenever I don't know how old I was, I always want to say like 13. I don't know. Apparently, I did like most of my life when I was 13. I don't know. But probably around then.
And I'm guessing age-wise, you had internet at that point?
Yeah, probably like 56K. I remember downloading The Longest Journey over a period of like 4 days. The longest download. Am I right?
And is that how you discovered how to make your own text adventure, and who these other game developers, these legends in text adventure development were? It was through like going to forums and chat rooms and whatnot.
I think so. I'm also just like a really big nerd, so I'd like just look it up and I was gonna say Google it, but that I don't know, what was it, Alta Vista it? Or Ask Jeeves it?
In your immediate peer group, were there other people who were into this kind of stuff too?
Sort of. So I ended up, probably the thing that really set a lot of the stuff into motion was when I was 17, so not 13. I actually remember this. I ended up going to NYU. They had this sort of summer camp for aspiring game designers who were in high school. And so I ended up going there. I was the only girl. That was sort of funny. So it was just classes in sort of programming and design and animation for, I want to say like a month or 6 weeks. And it was really great. We were working in like Unreal back like 10 years ago's version of Unreal. But it was really amazing to actually like start to be able to like I said, I'd mostly been like doing these tiny little projects and we were working in 3D. So it's like having these flashbacks to when I saw like Hyrule Field. I was like, oh my God, like I'm doing this. This is so crazy. And that was actually when I ran into one of the women who worked at Game Lab at the time. And she was like, we're really looking for interns. Like, what do you say? And I was like, I can do that.
And how has it been to, at least at that particular what is it, workshop, or would you say it was like a short class? Being the only woman there, or being the only girl there, pros and cons to that.
Yeah. So it's funny. It's the kind of thing that's changed a lot over time. At the time, I had been a tomboy for most of my life, so it wasn't unusual for me to be like the only girl in a situation. And I was like, I'm one of the guys, so like, yeah, tomboy stuff, not any of this like dumb, like girly whatever. So that's how I was at the time. But then over time and I was really lucky that like at Game Lab, there were a lot of like really amazing people, all different genders and backgrounds and whatever. So that was nice to have. But it was something that I didn't really start to value until I became a little bit older and was taking it a little bit more seriously, and sort of like, well, I've had lots of wonderful mentors who are men, but like I don't really have any role models for this industry. And I keep running into like a lot of stuff that feels like it's not right, but I don't really have anyone to tell me or to notice the things that I'm noticing. So over time was sort of when I realized like I really need a community of people who are like me, in addition to this other great community that I have, but it's still just not enough.
Huh. So you have overlapping communities, it sounds like, that kind
definitely.
of help you to parse out and reflect on what you're seeing. But you didn't have that so much at first. And you speak to the idea of always being a tomboy. Do you think video games and that sort of thing was attractive to you when you were younger because it was part of being a tomboy? Or did you become a tomboy in part because you were already into this thing that, geez, 15 years ago or so? I mean, I think it's better now. I would want to hear from you on that. But 15 years ago, it was definitely just cultural norm that video games were more for boys than girls. I've actually heard men who are really into romance novels tell me that they feel like there's a parallel there. Like, being a woman in the video games would be like what I'm going through, like trying to go to romance novel enthusiast circles, and it's all women, and they're like, what do you like these stories for? And they're like, they're actually good. Romance novels are not just for women, they could be for everybody, and they're looked at like they have two heads a lot of the time. So anyway,
we should do a romance novel jam.
I don't think that's been done. There's not enough overlap there.
There you go.
Novels and games, so I think what I was asking way back when I actually asked the question, feels like forever ago now. What do you think attracted you to games? Was part of it that it wasn't something that was strictly thought of for women, or was that immaterial?
I think it was mostly immaterial. I mean, this has been sort of a constant in my life that I've been like sort of I mean, tomboy is sort of a funny word for it, but sort of more on that end of the spectrum. But I think what really appealed to it was that it was this really amazing marriage of like both sides of the brain. So for me, I sort of knew from an early age that I wouldn't be happy just doing tech stuff or just doing like artsier stuff. But it sort of seemed like most creative careers sort of tended to fall into one or the other. I didn't really know about like design as a career yet. But so when I started like actually thinking about what it took to put a game together, I was like, well, this has everything. This is like all the things I like to do. And if I make my own games, I get to be the person who codes. Now I'm like, oh, I have to be the person who codes it. But I get to be the person who like codes it. And I also get to be the person who thinks about like the world that it's in. And I get to think about the art and everything. So it was that marriage of things that made it really attractive to me.
I was just hearing a thing on the radio about the secret to happiness. You may know this already. You seem awfully happy. No? You're probably doing it already. Which is to skew your perspective, intentionally decide to focus on the things that you appreciate. In any given situation, you can look at like, oh, this is not fair. I'm burdened by all this stuff I have to do. Or you can look at and be like, I get to code this? I get to do the art? Like, a lot of people would be intimidated and frustrated by the prospect of that. You look at it, you appreciate it as an opportunity. And there you are smiling. That's great. It's working. It's totally working. So that wasn't intimidating to you, the prospect of it from an early age, like that you would have to do all those aspects.
No, not really. I mean, later on I found out like I should never do the art for a game. Like that's a terrible idea. I actually have some like of my sketches that I sent to Jenny where I was like, we did it, or it was a placeholder art. And it's just like, is that a duck? I was like, that was a car. But yeah, no, I was never really intimidated about it because there's something. I feel like a lot of the people who I know who are game devs have, and maybe it's just people who are creative in general, have this sort of like desire to sort of like grind up to the hardest thing that they can. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like I know very few game designers who are like, who will like work on something. What am I trying to say? Like, I'm trying to say like we're all like sort of crazy and neurotic without saying like we're all sort of crazy and neurotic. But I feel like most game designers that I know like to like really challenge themselves, whether it's like learning a new tool or adding in new features or working late or whatever. There's a really nice like flow that you get into when something's really hard that I've always kind of appreciated it. I think it's also a trait that comes with people who code because it's like 99% of it. It's just being like, oh, that's wrong again. All right. Is it right now? No? Okay. Is it right now? Oh, yeah. Okay.
It's a bummer. If I had talked to you sooner, I could have invited you to do a guest review. Not that you would want to, or you're not too busy, but a new programming language just came out for the Nintendo 3DS called Smile Basic. It's something you buy. I think it's like $12, but you use it to make games. And there's like a bunch of developers who like Samu Wasada, who made 1001 Spikes, which is like this incredibly difficult game that Jonathan Blow actually play tested because that's what he likes to do in his spare time, is just like a million times in a game and talk about if it's good or not. But this is speaking to your point, which is game developers want to like have so much challenge in their life that other people would be overwhelmed, but they know they will overcome that challenge. And so many games that game developers like are like that as well, which is why I think the game enthusiast culture is so quick to talk about games like Dark Souls or like Super Meat Boy or whatever, because these are the games that people who care enough about video games to write about them or make them, for some reason we want to like be miserable and then get over it and like win.
Totally.
I wonder why that is. What is wrong with us?
I don't know. It's so funny when you think about it. And also like when you think about it, like in a way, like games as a whole make no sense, which is part of why we play them. Like I forget where this is. This is in some book that I read when I was in grad school, but I think it's a book, but it was talking about how like, we don't play golf by having a hole over there that we pick up the ball and then we walk to and then we drop it in, right? Like that's not, it's a game because we have to hit it with this like ridiculous little stick, right? So like why we have this masochism, I don't know. It's a good question, but yeah, no, you're totally right.
Yeah, is it? I wonder what it is. Because I did say miserable. And while I was saying miserable a few seconds ago, I was like, but I'm not miserable. I love it when I'm dying over and over and over again in Super Meat Boy. There's something about the idea that maybe it speaks to a certain truth. Is that philosophical? Because life is challenge. Life like a series of problems we need to try to solve.
Mm-hmm.
So games that don't run away from that by trying to just hand us a relaxing, empowering time, games that like make us have to struggle, seem more honest, maybe. And then when we get through it, we feel like we honestly did something that like meant something, that we were able to do it.
There's something really nice about like a non-subjective bar that you have to hit. It's actually, it's sort of funny because it's really not quite the same, but when you were talking about honesty, it reminded me of like the moment that I know a game that I'm making for me, like for my purposes, is good, that I should like keep going, is when people like start to laugh during it. Because laughter is a very, I mean, you could like kind of fake laughter, but like not really. You always kind of know someone's faking laughter. So it's such an emotionally honest response that I'm like, oh, like that did it? Okay. That's sort of rare. So like hold on to that, you know?
Oh, awesome. That is such a good barometer for success. Laughter, as I know it, is the close cousin to tears or crying, in that they are both ways to communicate with another human being without having to get through a mess of words where misunderstanding. Words can always lead to misunderstanding, but sounds, it's like, I feel terrible or I feel great. People get that right away. And laughter almost always happens when a universal truth that we didn't realize was true, but like tickles our funny bone from around the side, so we don't see it coming, but we feel it before we see it. We're like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. And then we're laughing. And your games must make sense to people because they do make them laugh.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so.
So far, so good. So what was the game you released before Slam City Oracles? What were you coming off of at that point?
Let's see. So, let's see. I think if I had to guess, it was probably Muscle-Bound Glory. That wasn't a big release or anything. I try to do like a lot of different little things so that like
What
stay
is
sharp, stay
Muscle-Bound
fresh.
Glory?
So it's a game that I developed with Andy Wallace, and you know, like in 80s action movies, and now I'm gonna forget all of them, but like where the good guy like shoots a bad guy, and then he like makes some pun about it. You know what I mean?
Commando,
Like, yeah,
Predator.
yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So we made a game like that where there's I can't totally remember right now, but there's basically like 3 stacks of cards. It's like the bad guy, I think the weapon, and then a wild card. And so you turn them over and you get this like setup. So you're the hero. This is, you know, you've just killed this enemy using this thing with this wild card. And now you have to come up with one of those like punchlines using as many of those things as you can. So it's just like this really ridiculous party game where you try to make like the worst like dad puns that you can in the sort of like vein of these 80s action movies. And again, like it's sort of funny sometimes writing these rules up because you know, it was like, oh, well, do you have to use all the things on the cards? We're like, well, maybe, you know, kind of, I don't know. Like, how do you vote? How do you know who wins? I guess, like, maybe you'll vote together, or maybe one person judges, or I don't know. Because, like, one of the things that I'm really interested in, and while I respect, like, games like Anne or Spelunky for being, like, so intense and so, like, elegant, I feel like often I like rules that just sort of create situations for people. Like a lot of my games are more excuses to have a good time with your friends than they are really to like necessarily win. So Muscle-Bound Glory is definitely about that because it's just like people dissolving into laughter as they like do bad Arnold voices or whatever. Like, so that's a lot of fun. Even I think the game before that had been Hermit Crab in Space, which was a game that we had done for a Sony Jam that ended up winning, and it was like this handheld modular space shooter. But even that, even though it was a space shooter, it was like very sort of ridiculous. So the idea was you had the spaceship and you could shoot parts off of your enemies and drag them onto yours. And there were all different types and you could like arrange them however you want, whatever. And you would map it to the different buttons on your Vita. So for each button that had a function, you had to map it. Because there were usually more blocks than buttons, you would have multiple things mapped to the same thing. So even there, like, even though that has like, I was a level designer, so, and the enemy AI person. So even though that has like a way to win and levels that you pass, you know, you just become this like ridiculous, like spaceship sort of like limping through the galaxy as you like fire your engines with one trigger, like a gun is shooting because you forgot that you mapped it to that too. then parts get shot off, and like it's just like very silly.
But yeah, what I loved about Hermit Crab in Space was it gave you the thrill of ever increasing power, and then it was almost like mo money, mo problems. Like you've got all this stuff, but then you can't deal with all the stuff that you've acquired, and that illusion of strength is in fact a hindrance. But it's still fun. Like it's a hindrance without hindering how much enjoyment you get out of it, and it makes you laugh, like you said. Whose concept was that, Hermit Crab in Space, or was that kind of a collaborative concept generation?
So that was done by the studio Golden Ruby Games, which is where Andy also worked at the time. And so I mostly just came on to do like level design and the enemy stuff. I don't totally remember how they thought of it. I know that once we had like finished it, a bunch of people came out of the woodwork and were like, I was making a modular space shooter. Like, what? Like, did you see my dev blog? And we were like, no, like, because this other guy said so too. And then this other person, like, the moment that we like put it into public, like 6 other people, no lie, were like, I was making that. Like, there must have been something in the air. I don't know. I'm sorry. Like,
well, that speaks to this other thing that a lot of people have been talking about it over the past month. And I wonder if you feel like you've experienced any of this, is the idea that there's so many game developers now and so many games, and why that might be and what that means. So we can start at the first part of the question. Why do you think it is that there's so many game developers these days, much more than just 5 years ago?
Yeah, I think it's just that the barrier to entry is a lot lower. And I mean, it's not as low as it could be, but I definitely think that with things like Game Maker, with Twine, I mean, even like Unity was amazing to me, because when I was programming in college, it was a lot of like C++ and processing and open frameworks and stuff. And so like if I wanted to share something with other people, it was like, oh, well, you know, do you run Windows or Mac? Like, will processing run on this browser or not? Like, I don't know. And Unity was amazing, because I remember it was like shortly before launch, and by that I mean like probably within like 12 hours of launch, I was like, should I make a Linux version? Yeah, why not? Who cares? I can export it to Linux. And so I just like pressed a button and did it, right? Which is like astonishing. Like, that's not something that I'm used to, even in like my experience as a game developer, being able to do. So I think it's a lot of that. I think that people are coalescing into communities a lot more, which makes it a lot easier to try it out and to like see what's going on and work with friends. And yeah, I think there's just like a much bigger awareness of what you can do and how to do it. There's tutorials everywhere. It's really nice, honestly. Like, I think it's really amazing, because I don't remember there really being resources like that even when I was young. So like, you know, even like 10, 15 years ago. But it's really exciting. And I think that not just in terms of like the quantity of tools, I think that the breadth of tool types is really exploding. So like there's lots of different systems that support different ways of thinking and developing, which is really exciting, because we can't, you know, people think and work in different ways. And if we only have a tool that represents one way of doing that, we're only going to have games that represent one kind of thinking process. So I think it's really exciting when you see stuff like Game Maker has the drag and drop logic if you want to use it, and Twine has the linked passages, and so on and so forth. So I think it's all those things together.
That is so upbeat and happy. So many other folks are like, oh no, everybody can make games now. Now there's going to be like more games than there are people who want to buy them, and every game developer is going to like make minimum wage at best, and like we need to get less people to make games. It doesn't sound.
Isn't it interesting how the cutoff is always like right after you started, right? Like no one wants to include themselves in that. It's not like, oh no, I'm making games. That's terrible for everyone who came before me, right? Like.
That's right. It's always the new people that they wish didn't start, as opposed to them. But do you think games, indie games, I guess in particular, but all games, I guess, are potentially going to suffer from this? There being more games than there is demand for games, and therefore games aren't going to do as well, or game developers aren't going to be able to make as much money.
It's a really good question, and it's something that I've mostly sidestepped by having my main source of income not be games most of the time. Mm-hmm. So, but it's a good question. The thing that I almost worry about more is like the market pressure on indies to distribute or produce things in a certain way, like I feel like there's so much pressure from the market to release your game for free. And there's this like unreasonable expectation that like somehow that will let us live, which like I don't know about you, but I didn't pay my last rent check with like free smiley face, right? Like so that's the thing that sort of worries me, is that like there is this pressure and this expectation from the market, or at least very large segments of the market, that like a game should be free or a dollar, right? A game should maybe have ads, but we'll still probably complain about it. And so yeah, I don't know. That's sort of the thing that scares me, is this push to constantly make your game cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, which is like scary for people who want to do it like for money to live on, right? Like,
Sure. Yeah, we had Henry Faber on the show that
mhm,
not that long ago from Bento Miso. He
mhm,
was very clear that one of the projects he worked on, Fate Tectonics, I think it's $12 or $15, and
mhm,
it looks like, you know, a 16-bit era game, and a lot of people
mhm.
just see a game that looks Super Nintendo styled, like, oh, that should be $3 or $2,
Yeah,
blah blah blah.
totally.
This gradual undervaluing of games
Yeah.
that we've seen happen, but
Mhm,
people are pushing back against it. And
mhm,
I personally think that they're going to win. I think that there are enough people that actually value games
mhm.
to support people who sell their games for $10, $15. How much is Slam City
Definitely.
Oracles, by the way?
So so this is where I like am revealed to be a huge hypocrite, because it's pay what you want. So that's I got a little
Well,
bit of
I
egg
don't
on
think
my
that's
face there.
hypocritical. Do you think that could be more of an answer for people? Like Henry Faber charging $15 for Fate Tectonics, bold move. I'm glad he's taking it.
Mhm.
However, if he had said, you know, it's pay what you want, people might have paid $20 for it instead of
It's a
fixing a hard and fast price. Yeah.
it's a really good question, and it's like so I like sort of can't answer one way or the other, because it's such I have no way of knowing, for example, how much people would have paid for Slam City if I had like charged money for it.
Mm.
Um, so I don't really know. I mean, it has been really a lot of people who have downloaded Slam City have paid for it. A lot of people, so like I don't mean to be gauche, but like it's actually been sort of crazy to look at some of the numbers. Or I would, you know, I use Itch.io exclusively because to me they're like the perfect service. Um, and they send you emails when you get a new sale. And you know, around launch it was like, oh, people are buying it for like $5, $2, $3, $10. Wow, this is so cool, whatever. And then there were like 4 or 5 times where I would like wake up and open my email and be like, so and so bought it for like $60, $80, $100. And I just remember like laying in bed and like trying not to drop my phone on my face and being like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, and Itch.io also shows you the emails of people, and I realized that it, you know, because I was like, oh, it's like my parents, it's, you know, my boyfriend or whatever, and it wasn't. It was like no one that I knew, and so I was sort of like, wow, this is like crazy that people, you know, see an artist or a type of game that they want to support, and then they actually like do it. Like that's bonkers. But at the same time, you know, so that was really heartening. But at the same time, like, you know, the money that I made off of the Slam City launch wouldn't like it's like
In
not
New
enough to
York.
live
Yeah.
on by any
Ah,
means, not
sure.
at all. So it's hard to say, right? It's there's sort of a delight with coming out more ahead than you thought from a pay what you want model, but it's definitely not gonna cover, you know, it might cover like a week, 2 weeks.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah. Well, I guess the compromise there would be bare minimum price of $2 or whatever,
right,
but then pay what you want on top of that.
totally,
But that sends kind of a weird message because pay what you want, people
right.
like it, I think,
Hmm.
because it is like a compassionate thing to do to the consumer. Be
Hmm.
like, I'm not going to charge you. Just like, you know, you go out to eat with friends and they're like,
Right,
you want me to buy that for you? No,
right,
no, you don't have to if you don't want. But as opposed to like, give me $2 to your friends that usually come
totally.
over as well. So yeah, it forms a relationship with the consumer there where you feel like
Hmm.
you care about them and therefore
Hmm.
they care about you back by
Yeah.
giving you an extra $50. But a lot of people aren't going to care about you and they're just
Well,
going to download your thing.
totally. And that's the thing that I think is hard, is that I feel like I like don't totally know the right way to phrase this, but I feel like it's a lot easier to get that when you have a lot of social capital, right? Where people feel like they're supporting you or whatever image of you they have in their head, which is a little bit hard for folks who, one, either don't have that social capital, or two, like don't want to super have that kind of like, I don't want to say, but like brand recognition, if that makes any sense, right? Like I feel like often people will have that conversation with themselves about like who and what they want to support with people that they know, and not necessarily so much on people that they don't know,
Sure.
which is too bad, right? Like that's a problem, and it means that part of the work, and this, this is true for other arts too, but I sort of didn't realize it when I was going into games and working a lot in indie games, was like part of it is like honestly like it seems like there's a lot of like branding work, right? You have to like be a personality. And for someone who has like a private Twitter, I was like, oh man. Like
Well, does that tempt you to open the Twitter up and be like the Jane Friedhoff brand is something you can follow? Because it is like I would follow your brand, and I do follow it on Twitter anyway.
Right.
And I will be getting the next game you make just because
Yeah.
I've gotten a sense of the kind of games you make, and I trust that you're going to make something that at least sincerely tries to make me happy. Like I get that sense from you. So, but other people don't know about you, and it's harder for them to find out about you. The locked Twitter. I guess I don't mean to answer your question for you. But, if you end up going full time with game dev, would that be when you have to unlock the Twitter?
I think so. I think that's sort of like a necessary, and I say this like not having gone full time like this, but to me, looking at the industry, that seems like an important part of it, which is always like a little bit scary to me. Is like I'm like an introverted person. I like to code a lot, like so that is a little bit tense.
And you're not the first person to. I think it was just yesterday. I was reading Twitter. And Brianna Wu, who's a local game developer, though I've never met her, she was saying she was at some conference talking to 30 women who all said they're not comfortable having public Twitters and making their brand part of their marketing because they don't want to deal with all the crap they're going to get if that happens. So they want to keep. And I'm only hearing that from women, really. I don't know any men actually that have a locked Twitter account. Maybe Dale North, who was the editor-in-chief of Destructoid, but he just doesn't like want to talk to people, so he just locks it. Do you know Dale?
Right.
He's a great guy. He loves corgis. He writes music. He's great.
Nice.
Yeah. You and Dale would get along great. But other than that, every person I know who has a locked Twitter account ends up being a woman. I can't imagine that's a coincidence.
Yeah, no, that sounds about right to me. I'm glad actually to know that I'm not alone. Right.
No. And who was it? Erin Robinson, who made Gravity Ghost. And Gravity Ghost, I don't know if you've heard of it. Neat game. Did pretty well. She was like, I don't want to like have my face be out there and have it be the Erin Robinson brand game because of all the unwanted types of attention I'm going to end up getting. Doesn't seem like that happens as much to the dudes. I'm not sure. I'd have to ask some dudes, I guess.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And then it's also hard because, and I mean, this is not exactly my situation because I did like women-oriented work in games, but it also is a little bit hard because sometimes when I feel like women get asked a lot about being a woman in games, to the point where like, it was a couple of years ago, I want to say it was the Indie Tech Talk that I gave at NYU Poly. It might have been before that, but it was relatively recently where I was like, I'm giving a talk about my games, like not about like harassment, not about like rates of people, of women pursuing games, not about like this, that, whatever, not about being alone, about my work. Like, wow, that's so amazing. And so I feel like sometimes that happens too, where, if I don't know, it's just like a weird, it's weird to be like, it's just a weirdness about being a woman in games. There's a lot of stuff to balance.
You could do a talk about doing talks about being a woman in games and how you have to talk about being
totally.
Good grief. Well, to put a positive spin on the idea that like anybody is making games these days, like from where I stand, you are already a role model that I hope people follow. Because No, it's true, because you are like passionate and excited, and you're making games because you love it, not so much for the money, which is already producing.
Not for the money.
Not yet, anyway. You never know. I mean, I don't think Minecraft was really for the money
It's
either,
true.
and then
That's
that
true.
blew up. So you never know. It depends on the scale of the project, and Downwell, again, not to harp on that game, but yeah, I think the creator of that is like going to school for opera singing in Japan. Like, it's not like his main thing, but he just loves games, so he made it, and it made its money, made its budget back in 3 days. I just heard. So anywho, he and you are two examples of folks whom may be great role models for people whom make games just because they really love it, and then you'll eventually become rich, and then people will be like, well, I don't know, that's the tough part, because then people will see you and just be like, oh, I want to be rich like her, as opposed to I want to follow my passion like she did. People, I think it's the folks whom are in game development just for the money who I'm hoping get weeded out of this like explosion of game developers. Like if anybody ends up getting the chaff, if any of this is chaff that gets cut off, I want it to be the people who just put out a mobile game because they think I'll be able to get rich off that. And there's so many of those games out there. Good grief. There's so many of them. So do you see a path happening for the industry in general where it ends up being the enthusiasts are the only ones left making games? People really love it.
I sort of feel like that's inevitable, if only because, like, yeah, I feel like they must just get weeded out because well, I shouldn't say there's no money there because I don't know for sure, but it seems like the kind of thing where that is risky with less payoff. So I feel like after a certain point, it'll just be the people who like need to do it, to like say whatever it is they want to say.
And I'm hoping by that time there'll be enough women in the industry that it's not like you're considered an anomaly. I tried not to treat you like an anomaly.
No.
You don't feel like an anomaly to me. But at the same time, realistically speaking, we're coming off of this long period, this era that I think is over or is ending, where video games were just thought of as like guys in their basements playing them. That old stereotype has been around forever. I think that might be dead or is dying.
I think so. It's also sort of interesting because I feel like it was a stereotype that like also like, well, I mean, most stereotypes aren't like super true anyway, but like there have always been women making games and like women playing games. And I think it was just, I think the percentage was lower, but I think there was also like this push that was like, no, this is like what dudes do, right? And I do think that is going away. But it's also sort of interesting too, because I feel like when we talk about women in games, we tend to focus on like the newest crop, which like me included, right? Like I'm pretty young, up and coming person in games, I guess. That's sort of weird to say. But all I mean to say is just that like, we often don't think about or focus on like the women who came before us, which is sort of interesting. It feels like a little bit cut off historically. Like I remember it was a while until I was like in games that I was like, oh, Donna Bailey, like shit, like there have been other women, before me, long before me, Brenda Romero and Brenda Laurel and just a million Brendas, I guess.
One of the women who've been making games for, I think she's making them for like 35 years. Jane Jensen, who worked on Sierra Games. She created Gabriel Knight and stuff. We had her on the show a little while back. The way she described it, Sierra in particular, it was, I think, 50% women there. And Sierra was like a pretty big company.
Yeah.
But for some reason, that's not the way it's been marketed. And I do think it comes back to, do you want some cynicism? Because I've got some.
Yeah.
Give you a whole bunch, and please tell me if I'm wrong. I'd love to be wrong about this, but there was an article written a while back by a fella whose name I'm suddenly blanking on. It's a neat name. It starts with an A. It's like Anoju or something. Lovely guy. Sorry, I got your name wrong. It was all about how marketing is done specifically to divide genders, because if you make a product that make men feel like they're more manly, and we'll buy it, as opposed to a product that's like, well, both genders can like it. They're like, well, I want to be manly, so I'm going to buy like the anti-woman product. So then they twist what a product is seen as to make it look like it's not for women. Therefore, men will buy it more, I guess. It's been done with toys forever. There's like a boys and girls section of toys. I don't know that many boys and girls, but I remember being a boy and I liked girls' toys just as much as boys' toys. Like a toy's a toy.
Sure.
It was fun to play with Care Bears. It was fun to play with G.I. Joes, what have you. But marketing told me that was weird. So then I was like ashamed to tell people I like Care Bears when there's really nothing not manly about a bear that knows how to have a good time. That's and stuff. It was great. So I'm wondering, I'm hoping that they've AAA marketing has seen that we're not going to buy that anymore. Like people aren't going to buy a game just because it makes them feel like more of a man anymore. Hope. What do you think?
That sounds so. I don't have like super scientific research, but I remember when we were putting together some of our initial slides at Code Liberation, Phoenix Perry just came across like this treasure trove of these ads. So this is like games and computers at the same time. But the first thing that she found was this article in like Cosmopolitan from a really, really long time ago. And they were talking about the compute her, right? Computing was so like done by women and seen as women's work that like that was the term they used for it. And there was a line in it that was something like, if you don't think that, it's something along the lines of like, if you don't think computing is a job for women, well, it is, because it was seen sort of as like secretarial work, like, oh, you're just punching in stuff. And then over time, Phoenix started noticing as she went through these ads, like more and more of them about being a dude and being really manly and like computers are for men. And this extends through video game ads as well. I remember she found one for the Vita. So, the Vita has the touchscreen on the front and the touchscreen on the back. And so the way that they decided to market it was they had this like from here to here on a woman. So like from the neck down. And so it had like a big pair of breasts on the front and a big pair of breasts on the back. And it was like fun on both sides or something. It's like, are you kidding me? Like, come on. Not long ago. This was with the Vita.
Yeah. Couldn't have been that long ago.
Yeah.
My goodness, Sony. Was that Sony Europe? They tend to get a little more wacky.
Might be. I don't remember. But yeah, so I definitely, we didn't do like a scientific survey or anything, but there's definitely those patterns of like, oh yeah, this is like definitely for dudes. It makes you like more of a dude. For men, whatever. This is also making me think, did you see that Kickstarter recently with like the chapstick for men? It's like, dude, tactical lip balm or something. It made so much money.
Was it serious or was it being?
Yeah, it was serious. I think. I mean, I feel like there must be a rule of the internet where like it sort of doesn't matter if something is serious or not, because I
guess not anymore.
You know what I mean? Or like the serious version will pop into existence after the joke version happens.
Yeah, and they'll both make tons of money.
Oh God, yeah, seriously. But so yeah, I think that definitely that I hadn't heard of the book you were talking about and the reason why that might happen, but that seems from like
I'll look it up for you.
That'd be great.
On Twitter a few years ago.
Cool.
And really resonated when people were. It's been very strange for me to see the pendulum swing from like when I first started writing about video games. Like if you did a post that just had like a girl with a bikini on it, you'd get way more hits and people would be like, that's amazing. Thank you so much for posting like a half naked girl. How did you find one on the internet? Yeah. And then the pendulum swung to like, oh, it actually makes people feel good about themselves to point out how that's like kind of cheap and stupid to take the easy road to just sell sex. And now it's like swinging away from that because people, if you say that video games can be sexist, now people think you're just like following a crowd again if you make that. So now the pendulum is swinging back to like attacking people who are attacking people who made sexist games. Right. And I wonder if it'll swing back again later. It just shows how charged video games are in general and how important they feel to people, even though, like you said about golf, like, why is this important to me that I'm hitting a ball into a hole with this funny stick? It's not important, but it feels super important. Yeah. I wonder why that is. Why do you think, have you given that, do you have an answer already? Do you have all the answers? Do you know why video games feel important to us? Because I think I know everything. It's one of my traits. But I wanted to ask you, of course, first. Do you have a feeling about that?
I really don't know. And it's also funny too because like there's a part of me that doesn't get the the intensity of the feeling that some people have for it. But there's a part of me that also like definitely does. Like when I was growing up, like playing games was definitely like part of my identity, and engaging in this culture was definitely part of my identity. And I don't yeah, I don't know, it's like a funny thing to try and reconcile.
Uh-huh. Absolutely. I try to remember what it was like for me when I was younger, before my identity was fully formed. Like, for better or worse, I'm not going to change that much anymore. I'm almost 40. I'm like stuck with this idea of myself. But there was a time when I was like, what kind of person am I going to be?
Mm-hmm.
And how people see me like was really important. And
Mm-hmm.
it helped me to find myself if other people saw me the way I wanted them to see me. So if people were to have said to me back then, well, video games are sexist, I would have been like, I'm not sexist.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have been able to separate it at all. Like, sure, I like Punch Out. Punch Out has tons of racial stereotypes in it. That doesn't mean I'm racist that I enjoy
Mm-hmm.
Punch Out. In fact,
Mm-hmm.
I'm less racist if I can recognize that it's racist, laugh about it a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
notice that it's a little bit dumb, but
Mm-hmm.
still have fun with it. It
Mm-hmm.
makes me feel better about myself to be able to see that, not worse.
Mm-hmm.
But this brings it back to my big theory.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Relationships. It's all relationships, isn't it?
Ah.
Like, we friggin' love relationships, and we define ourselves by them. We define like how we've succeeded in life. Do I have a boyfriend or a girlfriend?
Mm-hmm.
And we put a label on that relationship, and we put a label on the person in that relationship, and that therefore comes with it all these expectations and meanings and blah blah blah. We do the same thing with the video games. We put a label on the game, and the kind of relationship we have with that game, we define ourselves by it. I'm a fighting game fan. I'm a whatever labels. I don't know the labels well enough. I'm not going to fake it or else it'll sound terrible. But yeah, things that we have relationships with, they make us nuts.
Yeah,
we act super weird afterwards. We have a relationship with that ball and the club and the hole, and we have a relationship with slamming the women into the city and then bouncing into the clouds with the pizza. And then because that relationship was formed, Jane, have $100. Because that relationship I had with that game meant more to me than other things that I could have bought with that $100 that way.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Is that it? Have I figured it out?
It might be. That sounds pretty accurate.
Hooray me. I did it. We're doing pretty good for time. Woof. It's been flying by. You say you're an introvert. You're so good at talking. I'm going to try to tone it down myself a little bit. I drank too much coffee, so now I'm being overly chatty. I have to apologize. So way back, we tried to remember what the first game you made was, but that might be too hard. You think it was a Die Hard type text adventure for a family member.
That sounds right.
The first game you maybe like you put out there with the idea that it was a product that might be sold, or at least something out there that you're now like, I'm an actual game developer as opposed to a hobbyist, however you define that.
Oh, that's a really good question. So, feeling like I had actually done something in games, and this is like really, really little. And I think actually at the time I might have even been doing like a little bit of contract work. But I remember my first game jam, which is probably when I sort of felt like, oh, I really want to do this. It was, I want to say it was a game jam about horse ebooks, if you remember horse ebooks. Oh yeah. So and so this isn't my first game or anything, but this was sort of the first time I had done like a game jam with other people and had met other people in like the New York scene. And so we made this totally ridiculous game based on these two horse ebooks tweets, and it ended up being this game called it was something like Chance Cowboy and the Adventures of Disaster Wedding. So Chance Cowboy and Disaster Wedding had been two tweets. And basically,
before, did Andy Wallace work on this?
Yes, he did. Yeah,
I think he talked about it when
together
he was on the show too.
Oh, okay, cool. So yeah, actually, wow, this is weird because it's a game about running into stuff and knocking it over. So, how about that? So you're this like it's like a 2D game. You're this little guy always being propelled, and you have to like manage your momentum and smash into as many things in this wedding as possible. And it's really a lot like Katamari because you can only do big things after you've gotten enough speed from the little things. And And it was like this very silly game. I remember someone asked us why you couldn't go backwards. So in the instructions, we were like, you can't go backwards because Chance knows that, going backwards, no, you couldn't stop. Someone asked us why. So we put in the instructions like, you can't stop because stopping is just like running away or something. Like, I don't know, something totally ridiculous. But the thing about it was that, all the games that I had done that were like really small scale, I'd always done myself. I'd always like, maybe distributed them to my friends. That was it. Whereas this one, we made during a game jam. I was like, this is really fun. All this adrenaline, like we're here, we're working late, blah, blah, blah. And I met a lot of people in games, especially, and this was maybe like the most important thing, I was able to meet some folks from Baby Castles, which is like the sort of punk DIY game collective space in New York City. And so we ended up winning that game jam, and we got a copy of, I think, We Heart Katamari, signed by Keita Takahashi. So I fucking lost my mind. That's like up on my mantle. Like my diploma is like somewhere. I don't know. Who cares? I like that copy is like prized. But so one of the things that came with that was it was shown at a Baby Castle show back when I think they were like at Silent Barn or something. I didn't know them very well back then. But so it was shown at this Baby Castle show in this arcade cabinet at and they had like the Wu-Tang there, like someone from the Wu-Tang, which was fucking awesome. That's like the best story. That's like, I was like, oh wow, I don't have any stories left in my life because this one is the best one, that my game was at a Wu-Tang show. But I remember seeing people like huddled around this arcade machine playing this game that I had worked on and being like, oh my God, I used to be that kid at the arcade playing someone else's arcade machine. And now like this is happening to me. Like this is so ridiculous. Like I got to do this. I have to chase this feeling. This is the best.
Awesome. That was the feeling. So here's how it sounds. Mm-hmm. It sounds like you had like a taste of rock stardom and being touched by folks whom you see as rock stars.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you are a part of a group that was about games as social lubricant, about being close, but not in an excluding way. And this is the thing so I've talked to a few people who make games in New York and who make games or in small communities like Henry Faber we were talking about before. And almost always what happens is people hear about folks such as yourself and Henry Faber and Dane's making games in Toronto and whatnot, and they think, oh, those people think they're cooler than me. Yeah. Because they're having fun and they like each other, therefore they wouldn't let me into that group. It happens to poor Tim Rogers all the time. I don't know if you know Tim. He makes Video Ball. He works for Action Entertainment. He used to he sometimes writes for Kotaku. He reviewed football for Kotaku. It's like all football.
Interesting. That's funny.
And he's got glasses with thick rims, and he talks in a measured, thoughtful, slightly always making fun of himself way. And people think he thinks he's better than them when he so doesn't. Like he'll be friends with absolutely anybody. If you walk up to him and be like, "Do you like Mario Brothers?" He'll be like, "Come into my house and play Mario Brothers with me." Like that. And that's the sense I get from you as well. You don't seem like you're quick to want to exclude people. But do you get any of that? Do people treat you like you think you're cooler than them?
Not to my face, at least. I don't think. But I know the phenomenon you're talking about, and I think it's like a weird combination of things. Like, I feel like part of it must be. It's sort of funny to like, and this is something that has always made me feel sort of funny about Twitter and social media, like to see other people, act. And when I say acting out, I don't mean like fake acting. I just mean like, doing their thing, like acting out their friendships on Twitter. It's very easy to feel like everyone knows each other. I've like earlier, there have been times in my like games career earlier where I've been like, I got to stay off Twitter because I feel like I'm like left out and everyone else knows each other and they're like all best friends or whatever. And like, it's not true. I know that from having like talked to people on Twitter that that's not true, but you can get a very skewed sense of like what the group is. And then I think it's also like, it's hard because a lot of the reasons that, well, I guess I'll just speak for myself because I don't want to speak for other people, but like, I know that some of the communities, the small like ad hoc communities that I've made in games or around games have mostly just been like, oh, I feel like we're missing this thing, don't you? You do, great. Like, we should talk about it, we should celebrate it, we should make stuff. You know, Code Liberation was like, I remember it was like, I thought I was like the only woman in New York who did games programming. And I was like, that can't be true, but I think it might be. Like, oh no. And we just sort of found each other thanks mostly through Phoenix. And you know, it wasn't that we were like, we're the best like women in games. It was like, oh, like thank God there's someone else like this. But you know, you sort of organize in this very informal way. But sometimes people outside of that will take note, right? And you'll gain, you know, your group will gain more of a voice, or it'll gain more influence, or people will like start to take you more seriously or whatever. And I think that that can be tricky negotiating that change, because what started just as like a thing for you to talk about something that you liked with your friends is now something that has a little bit of an impact and an influence. And you have to sort of like be like, oh, you know, this can't just be like a thing that's about me having a good time anymore. Like I need to be a little bit more, you know, I need to continue doing outreach and stuff. It's not so much like inward for me. It's about like pulling in other. Does that make sense? It's sort of like hard to explain.
Oh no, I know exactly.
Okay.
It's it mirrors what I went through writing for Destructoid. First, I read it in the community blogs, which like don't get a lot of readers, so who cares? I can write whatever I want. Then after a while, people are looking to me and thinking that what I say is important and will influence other people.
Totally.
And therefore, it has weight, and then I have to consider what I say a lot harder. You are at a point where, like, if you come out tomorrow and say, like, some Let's Player or some popular blogger or whatever is a jerk and you don't like them, people will think that matters.
Right.
And people will be like, how dare you, Jane, attack so-and-so,
sure,
you know, some guy on YouTube, as if any of us are important. It comes back to that whole thing of not only do you feel that your relationship with a game feels important and therefore you'll fight to the death for it, the people are feeling like they have relationships with people like you and people like Total Biscuit and Jim Sterling and whatnot. And if people mess with you, people are gonna not so much because you're lower profile on purpose, but if you ever open up that profile, little things you say are going to mean a lot to a whole lot of people.
Definitely, yeah.
And that's how they're, and it comes back to the, unless you do that, unless people feel like you are super important just for being you.
Yeah.
Like Kim Kardashian style. Nothing against Kim Kardashian, but
I get that comparison a lot.
She's a cult of personality master. She has given people something that they feel like they get a lot of meaning from. The relationship they feel like they have with her, even though she's made a game and some clothes and stuff, but that's not really how she got famous. Yeah. What she says is really important, and if she did a pay what you want game, it would get, you know, $200-$300 along with like marriage proposals. And yeah. So that you would, I wonder what you're gonna do.
Yeah, good question. If you figure it out, let me know.
Well, you're early in this yet. Do you see yourself ever like? I mean, games are going to hopefully continue to get easier and easier to make, and eventually you'll be able to make your Grand Theft Auto scale game with even less resources, and it'll take you less time to make. So do you see yourself sticking in it for the long haul at this point?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I can't imagine not making stuff. And usually, like, it's funny because I always say, like, every time I start a new game, I realize that I have no idea. Like I've totally forgotten how to make games. When I started making my no quarter game, I was like, this will be easy. I've made so many games before. And every time it's like a totally different thing. But that's something that I kind of love about it. I can't imagine not making games. And it's sort of funny because I feel like our perspective of like, you know, like a true, because, you know, we joke about people who are like, oh, they think that they're like true gamers or whatever. But I feel like we also are like, oh, well, you're not really a game developer unless you. And I feel like there's this perspective that, like, if you don't do it full time, and by full time I mean like all of the time, then like you're not really whatever. Whereas for me, it's been really great to not necessarily have it be my sole thing, because I get to take inspiration from other fields, and then because I'm not 100% financially dependent on it, I can kind of make the games that I want, right? Like it was sort of interesting with Slam City. I was talking to folks like, if I do this for real and I want to so I should probably get it on Greenlight, get it on Steam, develop for consoles. I should probably have online multiplayer stuff, which means I have to figure out all this networking, maybe different modes and this and that, whatever. And it's not that I wouldn't like to do those things, but at the time I sort of snapped out of it and I was like, I could do all of those things, but it's not any less of a game because it doesn't have those things. And in fact, there's something about it that luckily I haven't murdered yet, right? If I keep working on this and I keep trying to change it and make it more like this or that or add this, then it might sort of lose some of that spunk and that I don't have any life force or do you watch Metalocalypse when they talk about zazz? It's their word for their incredibly irritating word for it just needs more zazz. But it might lose whatever is so charming about it, even if just because it'll get stale, right? I don't think we make games in a vacuum, and I think the games that we're happiest with are responding to something happening temporally. But so I feel there's this pressure to do everything and be a game designer through the certain path, but it's been really nice to sort of have the space to experiment a little bit more and be a little bit more playful in designing the games.
That's so awesome. Yeah, I couldn't support that more. But there are games that you have in the moment been excited to make, and then you drop them. The game before Slam City, you said you were working on, and I want to hear more about that. Why did you end up not wanting to complete that game?
Sure. So that's sort of a funny one. That was a game. Every time I make a game, I try to do something that I haven't really done before, because that's what keeps it really fresh to me. And there were a couple of things that I hadn't really done before. I had made installation games. And I hadn't made many games that were arcade games distributed, however, that I didn't need to be there for. And I hadn't really made any personal games. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll try making a personal game. It'll be autobiographical. It'll be sort of serious, but also funny, but also serious. And it was this game about looks and sort of being obsessive about your looks and why isn't this here and why isn't that bigger or whatever. And I just sort of lost steam on it because it was a challenge, but it was sort of the wrong challenge for me, because it was a very serious game. It was the kind of game where it was it would have been autobiographical, and it would have been something that you walk away from having known whatever story it is that I want to tell. And I just that really deflated after a while, because I sort of realized that rather than have someone go through a kind of shitty experience that I had gone through, I'd way rather be you know what? You probably have some shitty experience that you've gone through, so why not have a really good time playing this, right? And that was sort of the thing. So there's I feel Slam City is very much in the vein of another game I made called Scream 'em Up. And Scream 'em Up is a 2-player, basically Space Invaders clone, except to move the ships, you have to run laterally. So there's a Kinect and it's watching you, and you have to run back and forth with your partner to move your ship. And then to shoot, you have to scream into this microphone as loud as you can. So it just becomes this disaster of people slamming into each other and screaming and yelling, and then the audience starts screaming and yelling. It's really, really fun. But again, sort of going back to what I was saying about personal games, a lot of what is happening in Scream 'em Up and in I was gonna say Slam 'em Up and in Slam City Oracles is this taking, it's sort of thinking about taking up space and being loud and being sort of ridiculous and giving you permission to do that and incentivizing you to do that. And that's it. It is very much inspired by the sort of climate that I grew up in, that was very much steeped in punk and riot girl, right? So girls to the front, represent yourself, be loud, take up space, whatever. And there's a lot of riot girl and punk music, obviously, that's very serious, but there's a lot of it that's really joyous too. You know what I mean? I'm just thinking to the intro of Rebel Girl or something by Bikini Kill. And so for me, I was I want to make spaces like that, right? Spaces where it's not necessarily about me being I had a crummy thing happen to me, and more. Sorry, and I'm not making fun of any other personal games. That was just how mine felt to me, and more being you know what? We probably all have the shared thing that many of us have experienced. So why not turn it on its head for a couple of minutes? And actually, it's been really funny. I've gotten a couple of like really funny responses from Slam City Oracles. You know, lots of people have loved it, which is great. So it's like the middle emotion. I've gotten some men who have come up to me and been like, I don't think this represents women's experiences at all. And I'm like, like, I remember staring at this guy and being like, I want,
wait,
like, is
did
he gonna,
say it in person?
yeah, I
No
showed it
way.
at a, oh yeah, like I showed it at a, what is it? It's like some sort of demo night. And yeah, this dude comes up, two dudes actually come up to me and they tell me like, I don't think this represents a woman's experience. And I was like, just,
Did
okay,
they know
no, you're
you
not
made
gonna,
it? Were they joking? Like, I'm
no,
still,
they knew. They were
this
like, we
is
don't,
like the chapstick for men thing. I'm still like, is this a joke?
I
So
know.
they,
It's really funny. It was really
because
funny.
you're a woman, and you made the game, and they thought they knew better than yeah.
Crazy,
I
right?
keep thinking talking more about it, it'll something make sense, but it's not going to. The only explanation is they were pompous jackasses whom
Probably.
well, the proof is in the pudding. Maybe they've changed since then and are no longer like that at all, but chances are
Yeah.
yeah,
It was really funny. It was really funny. But then another response that I would get was from primarily women, sometimes men, but primarily women, who would like come up to, I had never met them before. They would come up to me and they would like grab my shoulders or clasp my hands and be like, where can I get this? Like, where can I get a copy for my daughter, for my sister, for my niece? Like, this needs to, and like, it was never like, oh, like, I appreciate that your game is about this, this, and this, or like has women characters. It was never like anything like that. They'd just be like, there was something in it that resonated with them. That felt really good. That's all you want, right? Like,
it's like I was saying before, and I guess we're almost out of time. Son of a bee. It happens so quickly. You can be super smart without being heady and having the focus be on thought. You can have a very smart design and have it be about punching in directly with feeling. And you have done that with Slam City Oracles. That's why people want to grab you and communicate through feeling directly, because they're like, I feel so great, thank you.
They don't slam me down, at least.
But they're energized by what you gave them because you put so much energy into it. You and Jenny and Scully working together. Thank goodness you did. And maybe it'll come to consoles if you want later on, but I assume you're already working on a thing. Maybe.
So not yet. I'm actually trying to figure out. So, I've done installation games. I've done a lot of weird tech. I've done like party games. And I've done this, which actually is like we made an arcade cabinet. It was me and the Death by Audio crew. And so now I'm like trying to figure out what the next thing is that I want to tackle that's still in like this sort of Riot Girl game design sphere. So I haven't settled on it yet. Do you have any ideas?
Oh, sure. Yeah. But I would probably give you ideas just with the thought that you could then reject them and then they would inspire you to come up with your own ideas. Those are the best ideas. It's kind of like, I'm trying to think of it, like a trampoline almost, like in Slam City. You're bouncing off of a bad thing to get somewhere better. I can do that with ideas. Any day.
Nice. Awesome.
So you are Jane Friedhoff.
Friedhoff? Yeah.
All right. Not Friendhoff, like I always want to say. Friedhoff. Your Twitter, not everybody can see it, but everyone can see the Slam City Oracle's Twitter, I think.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a thing they can do.
I do sometimes approve friend requests. It happens. As long as you don't look like a jerk,
And at least one of your games is on PSN, Hermit Crab in Space, right?
Yeah, but I think PSN shut down, right? Or something.
Is it? Like
something
temporarily or forever?
I think the market that we were on shut down.
What? Oh, was it on the mobile? The PS
mobile?
Oh, it did shut down. I keep saying.
So you could buy it. You maybe could buy like a Vita from eBay that has it on there already.
I didn't realize it. Oh, so it's like a relic of a lost era.
I know.
Or something. Is it on computers too?
No, it was. Wow. It was. I know. It's lost to time.
One of video games, true dodo birds. That's incredible. Yeah.
That's awesome. I want to put that as a tagline, like on the page. That is amazing. I love it.
But you are someone they can continue to follow through Slim City
That's
Oracles,
true.
and they can play Slim City Oracles on itch.io. Do you have an itch.io page?
Yep.
So I can look for your things there.
Yeah.
As for me, I'm at Tronauts on Twitter. This show can be found later on youtube.com/subhomeshow. You can watch it or just listen to it. Some people just put it in a window and then minimize and listen. That can be fun. It's also on Libsyn and iTunes as a podcast. Listen to it. I don't know. I think that's it. We did it.
Woo!
Take care. Bye-bye.